Hello, my friends and family. Well, it's getting close. Today's April 1st. I'm not going to play any tricks on you. But I think it's the third or fourth, I got to double check, that I've been on here, I mentioned to you, for 3 years. And I would start thinking about how I started all this. How did I get on here? And well, I have stuck with it for 3 years, so that's pretty good. But I had a tremendous start. Actually, when I started was the perfect time because it was during COVID. And there was so many people who were losing their loved ones, myself included. I had went through a horrific time with my husband with dementia. And I want to say this right now. I know there's so many of you out there who are dealing with a loved one with dementia, and you just so desperately need help. You just don't know how to deal with this. I had that happen to me. And the one person I listened to, but I'm sure there's more on there, was Careblazers. Yeah, it was called Careblazers. And it's, she is a doctor. It's a young woman. She's just so good. And there's so many videos on there that will help you so much. But write that down and look it up. But I didn't want him to catch me watching Careblazers because it was about dementia. But if he slept a little bit longer than I did, I would get up and turn Careblazers on. And oh, it helped so much because she just give me tips on how to handle things. Like when they tell you that the things they saw, that you can't argue with them. Just not that you don't want to feed into it and say, you know, maybe they see somebody in the house. You don't want to say things like, oh yeah, I see him too. It's just feeding into it. It's just, I think I used to tell my husband, I know you see that. And do you remember we talked about dementia one time? When you have it, you see things sometimes that other people don't. And I know you see that, but I don't see it. That's about as truthful as I could get. And I guess that's what I would want. I think if I had dementia, it would be, just be honest with me. So, anyways, today, I think we're going to talk about how I got started on YouTube, how this all started. Well, one day when my husband was, I don't know, he was still driving, but it was like very little. And I couldn't totally control him about it. He wasn't that bad that I could do that. But it was close to Valentine's Day. And I knew he wanted to get me something. And I thought, and he said he was going to, I think, go to Walgreens, which is like a couple blocks from my house. I didn't like him to do it, but I know it meant a lot to him and he wanted to do it. So, but he didn't go just to Walgreens. He went to Best Buy. He don't know anything about electronics. I was the only one that did anything with electronics, but he went there by himself and purchased me an expensive camera. It was over $1,000, maybe $1,200 something. I'm like, oh, we could not afford this. We just could not afford this. But he was so excited about it. And I remember talking to my sister on the phone. I go, I know I should take this back. And we talked it over and we're like, it would devastate him if I take it back. So here I had this camera, but you know, I think God has plans, and he had all this in mind, that this was going to be something that started me on YouTube. At the time I didn't know it, and so many times you'll do things will happen to you and you're not sure why it happened. And then you can kind of look back and see God's hand in things. But the crazy thing is, I don't even use that camera. But that is what launched me and what got me started. And I have a little picture I'm going to insert here of him looking at me when I took a picture of him, and he's so excited because I was starting to use the camera. So it's kind of sad to see that, but it did put such a smile on his face. Well, as time went on and he began getting worse, things got so tough with hallucinations and being closed in with him during the winter and COVID, and you're just by yourself. It was a nightmare, to be honest with you. It was just a nightmare. And yet I felt so sorry for him, and but I just wanted to I hate to say this, just talk to somebody listen to somebody who is in their right mind. You just long for that when you're around someone who's having mental problems like that. And so I started watching YouTube. And I remember it was Little Poet, which I still watch her. And if you watch me, Little Poet, I know you do once in a while. Hello, dear. And her photography in her videos is just beautiful, just beautiful. And then I watched, let me think. Sandra Hart. She was the Romper Room lady. And I think she's like 86 now. And she does a wonderful job in there, because I think, she was in television before, and so she is very good at it. Excuse me. But I began watching them, and I think probably just for fun, Palm Springs Cindy. Hi, Cindy. But they were my friends. They were my outlet. They were just people I could listen to. They would just, and so, like I say, my only time would be maybe early in the morning. I'd have just a short period of time. I'd have time to watch maybe one YouTube video and have a cup of coffee, read my Bible. But you ladies, if you're listening to this, you guys really got me through this. And I think I've told you that before. So maybe, I'm sure that is what. It's him buying me that camera, and then me watching these YouTube videos and how they help me, that later on, I'll tell you more, I just started a video myself. So, after a period of time, he just began getting worse and worse. But I don't know that I never thought about having to put him in a home, but I'd never come to the decision to do that. And one day, his son's wife, which would have been our daughter-in-law, she's a nurse, her name's Jenny, and just a sweet girl, and her and Larry's son, Corey, they came over to the house to visit. And I remember Jenny took me into the backyard, and Corey was in the house talking to his dad. And she said, "Sandy, you cannot keep doing this." And of course, it brought me to tears. I go, I can't put him in a home, And as she talked to me, and I considered it, but I was upset about it. Yet I didn't feel like I could go on with this much longer, because now we had locks on the doors where he couldn't get out. I wasn't getting much sleep at all because he was up wandering around and seeing things. up with flashlights looking at the walls even. It was bad. So then my daughter came and stayed, I think maybe a week or possibly 2. And she said to me, she goes, "Mom, you cannot keep doing this." So that knocking you hear is that little titmouse at my feet at the window. Little titmouse cracks seeds up there. But anyways, so between the 2 of them, and long story how it all happened, he began falling and all kind of things. He ended up, I had to put him into an Alzheimer's unit, which broke my heart. And then there's Medicare. You had to put them in the hospital for 3 days before you can put them into some kind of a home. So that was a problem, trying to work around that. And then trying to find a home that will take them. And if you're not on Medicaid, which would pay for it, and you're paying it out of your pocket, after 3 months with Medicare, they will pay for it. But after that 3 months, it's $9,000 a month. Well, I just had Social Security. So, ended up, long story, going to this lawyer, spending all kind of money and bad advice, bum advice probably, and I was totally exhausted. I ended up getting COVID. There was just so much to the story, so much paperwork, so many things I had to do. We never did get my Medicaid. Never happened. After all the money I put out with lawyers and all the paperwork and the running around, and just unbelievable. So I was like totally exhausted. I probably was in the perfect place to get COVID, right? So not only did I get COVID, I got some kind of stomach flu on top of it. If it wasn't for my sister and my brother-in-law, I'd probably be dead. But they lived in Indianapolis, a couple hours away from me, and they were in, long story, but they checked on me and ended up taking me into an emergency. And the local hospital was just totally full of COVID patients. So ended up going to another hospital. They drove me with a bucket between my legs in the back seat, throwing up. It was so horrible, so horrible. But after that was all over, I ended up in the hospital for about 3 days, and then came home and had to have in-home nursing care to get me back on trying to get me back on my feet. It was a month before I could even get back into the nursing home. But thank God they were taking care of him there. And they did take good care of him there. And he always was happy. This is what they told me, and people who came there to visit him told me. They said he was always so very happy and bragged about the place. He bragged about the food and everything, And he says, "Oh, I'm their favorite." And one of the nurses says, "Well, he is." But when I would come, he would just, to visit him, he'd totally fall apart. Well, now I hadn't been there for a month, so and tried to explain to him that I was sick. I was in the hospital. So it ended up, he passed away he got COVID. That stuff was really going around bad, but COVID didn't take him. It was the Alzheimer's. He just withdrew into himself, and he wasn't eating, and he was falling a lot. So I was able, before he passed, they didn't want to let me in there to visit him. And I ended up going through 3 different nurses, and they finally says, drive all the way down to the end of the building, and they had to, I put all kind of stuff on, mask and things on my head, and wrote I don't know, things over your clothes and gloves, and went down to visit him. And by then, hospice had come in, and they had him on a very comfortable bed that had the air in it, and he looked comfortable. And when he was sleeping or comfortable, he always folded his hands on his stomach, and he was that way. And so I could tell he could hear me, but he never opened his eyes. And I was so glad I got to go in there, because I was able to tell him I loved him, and I knew, and I told him, I go, if the angels come to take you, I go, don't be afraid. Just go with them, because I'll be fine. I'm okay. And, you know, it kind of gives them a release. And it's a good thing I went, because the following morning he passed away. They called me. So, more in a minute. So now, what I had to deal with was funeral, just everything that goes along with someone passing away. And if you dealt with it, you know what I mean. So now, because of having the COVID, and maybe you experienced this or you know someone, now my hair started falling out. So it just kept getting worse and worse. And I don't know how you ladies are, but it's bad enough dealing with something, but then your hair falling out on top of it. So I had to end up, after a period of time, after deciding about that maybe I needed to do something to make some money. I can't think how much longer it was after he passed I did this. It wasn't very long. But I was thinking, maybe I could do a YouTube channel. Just because I had been going through all this with widowhood, losing my husband. And I titled it, I believe, I'm a Widow Now, Here's How It Feels. Well, that really took off, the video. I'll put a link on there. But how are you going to make a video when your hair looks like that? It's like, I mean, I don't have a lot of hair anyhow. It's baby fine. And it was coming out in handsful when I was washing my hair. I actually had to throw it in the toilet, hands full of it, because I was afraid it was going to clog the sink up. So there, close by me, there was a place that sold what they call toppers, and they sold wigs. Well, I didn't want a full wig, but it was a topper, and then I would pull my own hair, what I had left, in the back up into it, just so I could do these videos. Well, I didn't know anything about lighting or even really how to use this camera much, but I figured it out. And I really didn't need this, but I didn't know. But I purchased I think they're called barn lights, and they're on a stand. I'll put a picture in there of it. But it's on a stand on the floor, and it can be adjusted higher or lower. But I hardly ever use those things. Rarely ever use them. And I'll tell you why, they blind me. I can't see the notes, and it just feels so unnatural when I'm doing that. But for my first video, I did have that. And I turned my fireplace on. And I did the best I knew how. But actually, I believe, yeah, at that point, my husband that I'm married to now, Bill, we had not met, but we had been talking. I think we got where we were talking on the phone to each other. And so he was encouraging me about making this video. And he saw my first video, and he's like, oh, this is... But it really, I got so many people watching that. It was, and my grandson had come over and helped me just a little bit. I don't know what it was on. It was like just probably getting me on YouTube or doing something like that with the filming. And he hadn't checked to see how I was doing. Well, I found a message. It was on I was so busy I didn't see it right away, but there was a message on my phone, and he goes, Grandma, I was just checking to see how you're doing with your first video. I can't believe it. But I think there's over 100,000 on that. But I started, actually had so many views that I began making money right away with it. I don't make much now. To be honest, I probably make averaging $300 a month, But I'm not. I can't say I'm not doing it for the money. It gives me a little spending money, but I just want to help people. I really do, because I know how lonely it gets. I really do know how lonely it gets. But Bill, who I was talking to at that time, he just encouraged me so much. He goes, oh, that I loved it. And he would listen to every video that I did over and over. In fact, sometimes he'd be calling me, and I could hear, I go, you got me on there on television? He was watching me on TV while we were talking. I go, oh, turn that off. But basically, that's how I started. I just needed a little money. I was, at that time, I'm 81 now, I was 79 then. And I just didn't want to work for somebody else. I didn't want to work outside the home. I had no desire. And I am creative. I like things. I was, prior to this, working for my nephew from the house, preparing books and entering them in to Amazon. So, but that got to be a bit of a job for me with the heavy boxes and stuff. So I'm still here. I didn't know if I'd stick with it this long, but I've just made so many friends on here, and so many people have said that I have helped them. And that's what encourages my heart. It really does. So let me know if you have been with me since my first video, or maybe how long you've been watching or subscribed. I'd appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you, because, hey, I wouldn't be here without you. And I wouldn't be here without your encouragement. There's been a few people who have been nasty, but, it's how it is when you're on here. You either get love or hate. Well, God bless all of you. And, so after this, I have some other little B-rolls that you'd be interested in. Okay, bye-bye. Make sure you comment. Let me know how long you've watched me. And I will put a link in the description of my first video. Bye-bye now. I just wanted to share with you a good series that I found. I was at church, and a friend of mine, we were just talking. She says, have you been watching that Prime Video, The House of David? And I said, no. And so we went home and looked it up right away. And it started in February, and I think there's 8 series to it. But it's about David. It goes under David and Goliath, and then there's the fall of Saul. But it's just so well done. And if you're fascinated by giants, your husbands or your grandkids or kids are like that, but that is done so well. It adds to the story. It's biblical, the stories are, but it adds to it just so that you can make a story out of it. But very well done. So watch it. I think every Thursday a new series, a new episode comes out until there's 8. I think there's maybe 5 of them up already. So we was able to get caught up, and we're looking forward to now every Thursday it coming on. So if you have Prime, like Prime Delivery or whatever, you also have access to Prime Video, those of you that don't know it. And so when you just click on Prime Video, you can watch it on your television or your phone or your computer, and let's see. Oh, and just put in there House of David, and it'll all come up for you. Okay, I hope you enjoy that. So I'm going to a local church tonight. Bill and I are, and there's a speaker there. He's the author of the book called The Case for Christ, and several other books he's wrote. So he's supposed to be really good, but it'll be packed tonight because here in Fairfield Glade, everybody goes to everything. They do. And they love stuff like this. So it isn't a church we usually go to, but I have friends that go there. All right, guys, let me know if you like this movie. All right, bye-bye now.